And we are live.
Okay. Well, welcome everyone to the June 2023 meeting of the City of Asheville Urban Forestry Commission. I'm Patrick Gilbert and I'll be your host for this afternoon. Before we get to the agenda, we'll go through a round of introductions. And I'm going to start with Ed Macy. Is he here? No? Huh.
Is his
Okay.
email Urban Forestry Alliance?
No, that's Karen McNeil.
Okay.
Okay, well, we'll come back to Ed. Cecil?
Now he's here.
Ed?
Yeah, sorry I'm late. Ed Macy, Asheville Greenworks.
Thank you. I'm going to pause right here. Many of you probably already know this, but for those who don't, Ed was a voting member and a council appointee to the commission for 6 years, and his term expired at the end of 2022. Ed agreed to stay on as a technical advisor to the commission and especially to the policy working group. Last month, Dawn Chavez, who was a voting representative from Asheville Greenworks, announced that she was stepping down as executive director of Greenworks to take on an exciting new position. And Asheville Greenworks ultimately appointed Ed Macy to take her place as the Greenworks representative to the commission. According to Chapter 2, Article 3, Division 7, this is a non-council appointed voting position, and therefore there will no need for council action. So Ed, welcome back to the thick of the fray.
Mm-hmm. It's good to be back. Thanks, Patrick.
Okay. Moving on, is Cecil here? If he's not here, do we have a forum, Nancy, or quorum? Because Chardin is absent, we have a vacancy.
Actually, it says Cecil's looking for the link to the meeting, so we may need to send that to him again.
Okay. Can you do that, Hunter or Nancy? Well, I'll move on. Sharon?
Hi, I'm Sharon Sumrall, UFC, and your representative of the Technical Review Commission.
Thank you. Zoe?
Zoe Hoyle, Urban Forestry Commission.
Karen?
Hi, everyone. Karen McNeil, Urban Forestry Commission.
And is Kim Roney here yet? No? Okay. Then city staff, Nancy?
Nancy Watford, Zoning and Stormwater Supervisor, Development Services Department.
Hunter?
Hi, everyone. Hunter Spitzer, Planning Technician with the Zoning and Development Services Department.
Thank you. Keith?
Keith Aiken, Urban Forester Development Services.
Thank you. Chris Collins here?
Hey, good afternoon, everyone. Chris Collins, Planning and Development Manager with Development Services.
Okay. Ganya Miser?
Hi, good afternoon, Patrick, Commission members. I'm Grania. I'm with Planning and Zoning Urban Planner.
Good to see you again, Grania.
You too, Patrick.
Been a while. Jennifer Blevins?
Hello, I'm Jennifer Blevins, Urban Planner with the Development Services Department.
Thank you. Sam Star Baum.
Yeah, Sam Star Baum, Planner 2, City of Asheville Development Services Department. Good to be back. Good to see y'all.
Thank you. Mark Foster.
Hi there, Mark Foster, City Arborist for the Public Works Department.
Thank you, Mark. Is Ben Woody here? Okay, any other city staff that I may have missed? Okay, anyone here who are going to represent the applicants for alternative compliance would like to identify yourselves?
Hi, yes, I'm Jason Seifel with Equinox Environmental.
Thank you, Jason.
I'm Nick Bowman, Davis Civil Solutions.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, thanks everyone. We'll move on to the agenda and the approval of the minutes. I hope everyone had a chance to read those, and I'll entertain a motion to approve.
I make a motion that we approve our last minutes.
Okay, Sharon Summerall has approved. Anyone second?
I second.
Okay, Zoe Hoyle will second. I will call the roll. Ed Macy.
I will abstain. I wasn't present at the last meeting.
Cecil.
I think he's still trying to get into the meeting. He sent an email asking for the link.
Okay.
I sent him an email for that link.
Sharon.
Aye.
Zoe.
Aye.
Karen.
Aye.
And I'm Patrick Gilbert. I'm the chair of the Urban Forestry Commission, and I vote aye as well. Okay, now we'll move into the alternative compliance. I believe that, which is first on the agenda, 16 Roberts.
Hello again, Jennifer Blevins, urban planner. And this request for alternative compliance is related to a new development at 16 Robert Street. It's at the corner of Trade and Robert Street. So it formerly had just a placeholder address on Trade Street, but it has been officially designated as 16 Robert Street. And the project is to develop a 3-story mixed-use building with commercial space on the ground floor and 8 residential units on the 2 upper floors. The River Arts District Form Code standards require a Type A property line buffer when a development site is adjacent to a residential zoning district. So in this case, a property line buffer is required along the eastern property line against the RM8 zoning. So in that 20-foot property line buffer would be required 3 evergreen, 2 large, and 2 small deciduous trees, as well as 16 shrubs, 8 large and 8 small. And the site is tight, and obviously got a change in elevation there toward the rear. So the applicant is proposing to provide all of the required plant materials, but to reduce the width of the buffer from 20 feet to 6.7 feet in order to accommodate the building and the required on-site parking. They're going to construct a 5-foot high retaining wall at the rear of the parking lot, and then the plant materials will be placed at the top of the wall. So the code in the River Arts District does allow a staff-approved alternative that would allow us to reduce the planting strip width down to 10 feet and reduce the plant materials in this case to 4 trees and 8 shrubs. So that would be 2 evergreen and 2 large deciduous trees. That alternative was unavailable because of the topography, because in order to approve that, a 6 to 8 foot wall has to be planted with those plant materials on the outside of the wall. And because the site goes, it slopes upward, that wall would be, you know, the plant materials on the outside of the wall wouldn't screen the wall. And of course, they're reducing the width, or proposing to reduce the width below the 10 feet. So that alternative was not available. So based on their landscape plan, it appears that they're going to provide an effective screen. And what we are seeking today is your recommendation on whether or not that 6.7 feet would be enough space to support all of the plant materials, because they're not seeking a reduction in the number of trees and shrubs. And if you have any questions about this, I'm happy to answer them. And Nick Bowman is here. He's the engineer for the project and has designed the plan. If you have any questions for him.
Sharon?
Hey, Jennifer, I've got a question. I pulled off on the plans that they needed 4 evergreen, 3 large, and 3 small deciduous, and 8 large shrubs and 8 small shrubs. That's what was listed on the plans. So doesn't mean I didn't write it down wrong. What are they proposing again on the evergreen? 2 evergreen, did you say?
No, they're proposing 3 evergreen, 2 large, and 2 small deciduous trees, which is based on the calculations of 78 feet for the length of that property line. That's what will be required as far as trees go. And then 16 shrubs, 8 large and 8 small, half of which would be evergreen.
So their original plans on there, the 4 evergreen were required, the 3 large were required, deciduous, and the 3 small were required in RAD-NT for a type A buffer. But they're asking for a reduction in the quantity of plants, as well as a reduction in the size of the width of the buffer.
Not based on my calculations.
So maybe what they wrote on the plans is incorrect, or maybe I wrote.
That could be.
Okay.
Yep.
All right.
I don't recall coming up with a conflict when I reviewed the project.
Okay. All right. Yeah, you're more likely right than I am on this, because I did this a couple days ago. According to your calculations for RAD-NT, the only thing they're asking to do is to reduce it down. Do we know to 6 feet or 7 feet? Have they made that determination?
It's 6.7 feet. So 6.5 feet.
6.5 feet.
Or a little bit more than 6.5 feet.
Okay. Okay. I don't have any questions at the moment. Thanks.
Sure.
Liesel?
Sorry I'm late. I couldn't find the link. I found it a month ago, the link for the meeting. Anyway, it strikes me that a 6.5 foot wide buffer with large maturing trees is going to blow out a wall. I mean, it'll take a while, but it'll blow out a retaining wall. I see them around town in a lot of places. I'm just wondering how that works out over time.
I think I'd have to let the engineer speak to that. I imagine there are, ways to design a wall to prevent that. Or certainly you could recommend replacing the proposed large maturing trees with small maturing trees. Nick, do you have any insight onto whether over time the large trees?
Sure, this is Nick Bowman, Davis Soil Solutions. The required large trees, I placed those to the extreme extents of the property to help alleviate that. So the smaller trees are located more toward the interior where that retaining wall is located.
Down the center of the property line.
Correct.
And the large trees on either end. Okay, gotcha.
Correct.
That makes sense. Thank you.
Ed?
Yeah, Cecil started heading in the direction that I want to go with this. Is the planting going to occur on natural grade on the top of the wall, or is it going to be filled on the back side of the wall and then planted on top of the fill?
No, the existing grade will remain. So we're excavating to decrease the elevation, the existing elevation in the proposed parking area. So that retaining wall will be holding back material.
Natural grade. Okay, and then what kind of what construction material are you using for the wall? What kind of wall is it?
It hasn't been designed. I would imagine it would probably be segmental block.
Mhm.
But
Is that reinforced?
It would have geogrid potentially, but with this height might not be necessary.
Okay.
It's only 5 feet at its tallest.
Okay. I think the width is adequate, especially if you sort of plant the large maturing trees at the corners or the extremes. You may consider using some root barrier product to redirect roots along the edge of the wall. That may help with the longevity a little bit, but Cecil's right, probably 30 years down the road with a large maturing tree, you might start busting it out. I don't have any other questions.
Okay, thank you, Ed. Jennifer, does the request meet any of the 6 criteria by which the commission is supposed to base its recommendation on?
I did not evaluate this against the criteria. I evaluated it against the code requirement. The applicant answered those questions in his application, and I think they're available on one of the slides.
Okay, Sharon?
Yeah, they answered it by they're increasing the parking. So that's why they're doing what they're doing. So they're trying to increase their parking and not have to do their parking in another area. In RADA and T, they can offer parking on site and then in other locations, and they're trying to consolidate more parking onto that location. And that's why they're asking to do this, to meet their parking criteria and increase their amount of parking.
That's correct, and I can add to that a little bit. She is right that that was the goal, but we still don't meet the required minimum. So we will be having 3 off-site parking spaces for the project.
And also, it's going to be commercial with 8 apartment units.
That's correct. Commercial, 2 commercial spaces on the lower level, and each of the upper levels will have 4 residential units.
Oh, not 8?
8 total. 4 on the second floor, 4 on the third floor.
Cecil?
Yeah, I'm a little confused because my experience of this over many, many years now is that the exceptions to the rules cannot be created by the developer. In other words, the developer can't create a situation in which they can't comply. Usually the idea for an exception is that the situation is such that they can't comply. Say a paved sidewalk in front of a building where you can't put street trees, or where there's sewer and gas and whatever. It looks to me like this is being created by the design.
Does any staff or the engineer want to respond to that?
Yeah, it's a difficult question. You know, the site itself is 9,000 square feet. So we are extremely limited in the available space that we can use, and we've used almost every bit of it to meet the requirements of the ordinance.
Sharon?
Yeah, knowing that was yes, that it was something on their constraint, and then knowing the location and me immediately not wanting to approve this and went through to say, well, they are going to have housing. And what's happening with me now is concessions for me and alternative compliance, as well as we're going to see one that's going to be removing trees for solar. So I'm coming to the point where there's going to have to be, for me, I'm not saying for anybody else, some give and take on what I'll approve and what I won't approve. And I went first to say no for my own self, and then said yes because of knowing the area, it's not that impactful, and two, knowing that there's going to be housing there. So I went personally and said that I will vote to approve this, knowing that they were creating an issue by adding the parking.
Thank you, Sharon. Karen?
Hi, you had mentioned that there will be some off-site parking for 3 spots, and I'm just wondering if there is room for more than 3 spots in the off-site parking to create more space in the buffer.
Well, that was one of the comments the city staff had. We have to calculate the required parking for the location that we are using, which is just down the street. It's at the Hatchery. I don't know if you're familiar. So we're gonna have to calculate what they've got, what they're required, and to make sure that it will be in compliance with the regulations for parking, so that it could support our 3 additional spaces.
And Nick, does your client already negotiated an agreement? Is that right?
He has already negotiated an agreement with the Hatchery, and that is already completed in writing.
Right. So and so as part of the level 1 review, we needed to, in order to share parking, they have to demonstrate, or in this case, Nick has to demonstrate that the place where they're going to be using parking has enough parking to spare, has over the minimum. So if they only have the minimum number of spaces, then we could not accept that shared parking agreement. That's yet to be determined.
Mm-hmm.
Does that answer your question, Karen?
Yes, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Is there any further discussion? Hunter, is there anyone in the queue who wishes to speak to this alternative compliance request?
Give me one moment to check.
Okie dokie.
There is one person in the queue. I believe if you press *3 to request to speak. It always gets tricky in here. I cannot tell if they want to comment on this specifically or
if you can patch them through, we can ask them.
I will do that. You are unmuted, caller, if you would like to say something. Oh. I don't think they have anything to say on this comment.
Okay. Thanks, Hunter. Then if there's no further discussion, I will entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion that we approve this due to the fact that the planting that they're going to be using and how they're placing the trees behind this retaining wall will support the trees and support the growth and not cause any damage that we're aware of through the comments that were given to us by the engineer, and approve this alternative compliance.
It's been so moved. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Ed Macy seconds. You've heard the motion. It's been seconded. Is there any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, I will call the question. Cecil?
Aye.
Sharon?
Aye.
Zoe?
Aye.
Karen?
Aye.
Ed?
Aye.
And I vote aye. So the alternative compliance request for 16 Robert Street is approved. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
So now we will go to 144 Biltmore Avenue. Grania?
Thank you, Patrick. Nice to see you again. I'm Grania Miser with Planning and Zoning. I am going to present to you this afternoon the alternative compliance application for 144 Biltmore Avenue. This property is an existing building, and with a zero setback, the building comes right up to the sidewalk. It's a corner lot. So we are on the corner of Market Street Extension and Biltmore Avenue. Under section 711(3)(d)(3) for our street trees, based on linear footage for Biltmore Avenue, we'll be looking at 7 street trees along the frontage and 4 along Market Street Extension. The alternative compliance application request is to reduce the number of street trees from 7 to 2 along Biltmore Avenue, and to have no street trees at all along Market Street. All other required landscaping will be achieved under the level 1 project. Obviously interesting to note, we are some of our site. So this image on the right hand side is the street view from Market Street Extension. You can see it's an incredibly narrow sidewalk. It kind of dead ends into a sewer manhole cover. And to the back of that image, you can see there is actually a bicycle rack there, but there's also a some gas infrastructure, a gas meter, and beside that gas meter, there's also sewer manhole in the sidewalk there. So very restrictive in addition to the telegraph poles. So that is the extent of the sidewalk along the Market Street part of the building. And then this is a view looking south along Biltmore Avenue. Again, you can see on the left-hand side the gas infrastructure, the manhole cover, and then we've got the telegraph poles down Biltmore Avenue, in addition to the sidewalk being only about 6.5 feet along that stretch of Biltmore Avenue again. So the restrictions that we're looking at with this sidewalk, as far as being able to do the street trees, are the ability to maintain ADA compliance along this sidewalk, and to be able to maintain trees that are healthy and will adequately meet their role under our landscape standards. So all other required landscaping will be achieved. In fact, I think we've gone a little bit over and above what has been required in the VU area. You can see along the back of it, there are some existing trees that we'll be able to use. So on the left-hand side of this slide is where we're beside the sign is where we're proposing to put one of the trees in this kind of planting well, and the other street tree would be on the south side of the driveway, which again right now is non-existing. I believe it's just a parking spot. We would put it there, and then the building takes up the balance really of the site from the planting well. north. There will also be some street buffer vegetation along that. It's not shown on that site plan, but that will also be achieved. So in reviewing this application, I think staff found that the restrictive width of the sidewalk along with the existing utilities in the sidewalk certainly significantly reduce the ability to maintain the ADA requirements. And again, in addition to the width and just the physical limitation of it, then we have the gas and sewer utilities, which sort of compound the problem a little bit. I'm happy to answer any questions. If you have any, the applicant is not here today. I'll be here if you've got any specific questions.
Thank you, Grania.
Sure,
Sharon?
thanks. Sharon, go ahead.
Hey, Grania, why weren't you required to widen the sidewalks on this development?
Because it didn't, the extent of the development on the level one wouldn't require that the sidewalks be added. It wasn't a full site compliance with sidewalks.
Okay, thank you.
So that's what triggered the level one, Sharon, on this is that it's going from a multi-level or a multi-tenant situation to a single tenant. And so that's what triggered the level one. So the requirement for the sidewalks wasn't actually triggered by the scope of work for the project.
Yeah, thank you. That makes a difference.
Sure, of course.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions for Grania? Okay, seeing none, then I will entertain a motion.
I move to approve the alternative compliance.
Thank you, Cecil. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Karen. Thank you. You've heard the motion and it has been seconded. Is there any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, then I will call the question. Karen?
Excuse me, a question?
No, I call the question. A vote on the motion.
Hunter, are there any?
Sorry. Yes.
Hunter, is there anybody in the queue?
There is still one remaining person in the public input listening chat. They have not raised their hand to enter the queue.
Okay.
Caller, you can press *3 if you would like to make a comment on this. I can also, they have exited. And there is nobody else in the calling queue. Apologize.
Okay, no problem. All right, I'll call the roll. Karen?
Aye.
Ed?
Aye.
Zoe?
Aye.
Sharon?
Aye.
Cecil?
Aye.
And I vote aye. So the request for 144 Biltmore Avenue, the alternative compliant request is approved. Thank you, Grania.
Thank you, everyone. Nice to see you.
Okay, we'll move on to 225 Emma Road. Sam?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Gilbert, members of the commission. Again, for the record, my name is Sam Starbaum, Planner 2 with Development Services. I'll be the planner handling this alternative compliance case. This is going to go just like any other case you've seen. We'll get into the request before the committee. I'll discuss some of the existing conditions, what I had seen on the site visit, as well as some site photos with some zoning maps, and we will get into the TRC proposals. What this is, One Greeniest Way is a major subdivision that has not gone before the TRC yet. They are seeking alternative compliance. And Hunter, if you can go 2 slides forward. So one more. And what they are doing is they are seeking to have 18 homes on this site, but instead of going by the ordinary street requirements where there are all other conditions that would require one large maturing tree for every 40 linear feet, the applicants are seeking the overhead utilities present route, which is one small maturing tree for every 30 linear feet of property abutting a street. Under that condition, they would be required to have 32 trees, and they are actually proposing 36 trees, which is 4 in excess of what that standard would be. So next slide. This is the property where there will be 18 homes. This will be a single family residential subdivision. You can see this. This is north, standing facing south towards French Broad and much towards River Arts District area. It is actually not that far from the New Belgium Brewery. That's exactly the direction we're standing in. As if you're looking at that, you can see the slope. Most importantly, you can see that there's really only one wire over this. It is also not along where the proposed street will be, which we will see in the materials when we get there. This is another look at the site, which is facing a little more north. You see the slope. It is also showing what is existing. And Hunter, if you can go one more slide. This is the existing home that is not addressed as 225 Emma Road. This will actually be what you see as not part of the subdivision, but this shows this area. Thankfully, the applicants with Equinox have provided supplemental photos, which spares you all from my terrible photography. We'll see that at the end for them, and they can talk about this a little. What I wanted to do is highlight with these photos the presence of the sun and the absence of utilities there. So if we can go to the next slide. This is something that is worth mentioning. I'm not sure if it's entirely relevant because there aren't any buffers being discussed. Applicants can meet all other landscaping conditions, but this is just a zoning outlook of the area and something I like to provide the commission with every case regardless. So you can see right here, it is smack in the middle of RM8. It is the sort of triangular shape that abuts large RS2 and that resort CUP portion. There is you can faintly see it on the RS2. There is a railway that follows the river. There is a railroad easement that does bleed into the property that is subject today. That is, of course, 225 Emma Road. So next slide, Hunter. Yeah, excellent. This is the site plan that is being proposed, and here's where you can first see that railroad utility and what this layout looks like. Sort of towards the north, you can see what is going to be more or less flagpole access for the existing home in that area. That is off parcel, but these are the 18 homes and the proposed layout of the street, which is where the street trees would be in question. This street length is 507 feet. So that's the math used to calculate this. And here you can see the landscape plan where they're showing, again, they're using the overhead utilities present to maximize solar. And this is where you see those 36 trees along that road frontage, as well as some of the open space and the other proposed landscaping. Again, the Technical Review Committee has not weighed in on this yet. The applicants have chosen to come before you to seek the alternative compliance request before moving forward. So it is entirely possible that there are other elements that may change throughout the neighborhood meeting process. What we are here today for is the discussion of the street tree requirement to go from all other conditions to overhead utilities present to maximize solar on the site. And Hunter, if you want to go to the next one. Yeah, excellent. Thank you. So this is showing more of what the landscape plan looks like. Again, with the caveat that this may change. This shows the trees, the coverage, the canopy, the open space, and areas that are worth preserving. Because this is a new application before the TRC, this will have to meet open space under 711-4 as well as our tree canopy preservation. It's all shown there. A lot of that will be covered, I think, in sort of the northeast and sort of the back half of those lots as it sort of swoops around to the back portion of the lots on that southwestern side. Next slide. Excellent. So staff findings on this one, I really identify with what Jennifer said and how she said it. As staff, what we do is we actually do not weigh these against the standards that the commission does. We weigh this against the UDO. With that said, it was something that had complied with the standard if it were all overhead utilities present, but there were no overhead utilities present. And the sun is not an exclusive utility. It is not, it's just not unique to 225 Emma Road. And I'm somewhat dismayed that the one day I could get out to take site photos is it was cloudy, because in that photo facing south, it was clear that it would on a sunny day in June get good light. So I think that there may be merit to the request, before the commission, but more information is needed to weigh that from a staff perspective, and that there were no photometric designs or anything like that. Now, Equinox is with us. They have submitted other information after the deadline, and maybe they can answer some of those questions about how this is more necessary than staff may think to make solar a reality for the site. So that's sort of the staff finding and the recommendation. Of course, this is all seen in the report. You can find on the next slide the same points for discussion, but that's a lot of information and not a lot of time, and I would be happy to answer any questions that you may have. Yes, Mr. Macy. You're muted, I think.
Thank you. Sorry about that.
Yeah, no worries.
Have they provided any solar access mapping?
No.
I think, well, I think without that information, I can't make a decision on this. I think this establishes a really bad precedent. I'm not convinced that planting street trees will have any impact in the long run over solar access. I don't see any guarantee that every unit's going to have solar unless it's part of their building plan. I think that the trees provide far more greater ecosystem benefits than the single benefit of saving carbon output with solar energy. So I know I'm waxing with opinion, but without a solar access map, I don't have enough information to make any decision at all.
Thank you, Mr. Macy. I believe Ms. Summerall, you're next.
Hey, Sharon, to you, Sam.
Yeah.
So my concern is because it hasn't gone to TRC, we don't know what plants they're going to keep, what they're going to take out, what trees are existing. And even I'm inclined to agree with Ed because I don't have enough information that even if we were to agree with this, how many trees were they slating to come out? And if they didn't meet the metrics, then that would make this whole point moot anyway.
Yeah. I mean, so I want to clarify, there are things that may change through the neighborhood meeting process. There may be things that would be different for the TRC submittal. They would still have to meet one of two standards. It would have to be one large maturing tree every 40 feet per the all other conditions, or what they are proposing, which they have met, which is one small tree every 30 feet along that 507 feet of road right of way. So the street trees will have to be met somehow. I want to be clear on the record that there will be street trees. That is a standard that TRC evaluates, and that is not to say that they go away regardless of this. So there will be landscaping standards, TCP, open space that will have to happen for TRC approval as well.
Yeah, and to make a comment for Cecil response, but we know that changes. We know that they can fee in lieu 719, and they can also have minimal amounts of meeting on 711.3, not knowing what it is we're looking at. So that's why I'm a little hesitant to want to agree with this without knowing exactly how the rest of the site's going to be impacted by X amount of trees. And I'm not sure how many are coming out that equate X amount of percent of canopy loss.
Certainly. And Mr. Bothwell?
Looking at the site photos, it appears to me there aren't any trees to come out of there. It looks like a pasture, but there may be around the edges. Living in a net zero solar home, I'm acutely aware of the impact of the shadow of large maturing trees. I've got a black walnut that shades my house in the morning, so it cuts my solar gain, but it also keeps me cooler in the morning. I mean, it's a complicated thing there. And what I would want to know is this developer committed to going solar on every house in this development? If so, the impact of that on our carbon footprint would be really good. If it's just a notion that maybe some people will want solar, I'd have to weigh that both ways. Yeah.
So I actually hear two questions in that, and I will answer them. Jason, I also see your hand is up. You're going to be coming next for the applicant when that portion shows up. But there are two questions in this. Are there trees existing on 225 Emma Road? To borrow a line from Star Trek, I'm Jim. I'm a planner. I'm not a photographer. You are correct. There are trees sort of along Emma Road. They are there. There are some plans to keep that. That is part of the negotiation. But largely where this is happening is the pasture that you had seen and that I had taken that photo facing south. Now, this is a little complicated. They have committed to providing solar, but the application before the TRC will be a major subdivision, which is a platting matter. We can perhaps, and I would have to check with Eric Edgerton and legal about getting something requiring that. But by and large, after this is platted, then what happens is you go to Tyler Kelly, the residential review specialist, and you have individual builders applying for those, and there is nothing to say that they have to meet solar. So there is, while you are correct in saying that the applicant has committed to that, there is a lack of regulatory teeth, if you will, to ensure that will always be the case and in perpetuity.
Yeah. At least there's the economic benefit. I mean, those who've done this, I mean, my solar panels have paid for themselves years ago.
Yeah.
You know,
and there is yeah. And there's a benefit to doing it. There's an economies of scale, to be sure, with solar. So it does make sense to do this at the beginning stage. But again, that's not
right.
There's nothing to say that is guaranteed.
Right.
Or has been seen so far. So are there any other questions for staff?
Jason, did you want to speak?
Yes. Hello, everybody. Jason Cycle with Equinox Environmental. For those of you who are not familiar with Equinox Environmental, we are a landscape architecture and ecological services firm, and we're very mission driven. And our mission is to develop spaces, preserve spaces on an ecological side. We do a lot of stream restoration. And on the landscape architecture side, we develop spaces at a minimum for sustainability, but for maximum for regenerative design. So our commitment, and the only reason we took on this project was that this particular design would not only focus on the stability of the site, because if you are aware, if you saw on the plans, if we can go back to them, I'm not sure. But there is.
I'm sorry to interject, Hunter. You can also go forward for applicant materials that were provided, because those are in there. Sorry to interject.
Yeah, we can stay. Well, we can stay on that. We can stay on the plan. Yeah. Very steep slopes here. So our client, Nicholson and Son, hired us to make sure that this site was developed as sustainably as possible, knowing that he had a very steep slopes on the edges. And so what we're proposing to do is we're proposing net zero homes within an LID development here. And so we have a strong focus on stormwater infiltration. And we want to do treatment and attenuation of stormwater above and beyond city standards. We want clean energy, and we want to not only preserve canopy, but we want to improve the existing canopy. So if you look at this particular map, we are actually proposing to replace every single tree, or we did the calculations of the canopy from the ordinance, and we're proposing to replace everything that we take out, not only to replace it with in quantity, but we're actually improving it in quality. And you can go ahead and go forward on the slides, and you can see the existing quality is very weedy. There's actually quite a bit of invasive species in there. And we're hoping in this development to replace all of the invasives that are disturbed with the development with good quality canopy of tree. Now, going to what Cecil was saying about the solar is, yes, there's good solar access on the site, which is why it's actually a great candidate for a solar subdivision, for a net zero subdivision. What happens is if you put large maturing canopy trees as street trees along the new proposed road, those will actually shade out. And if you back up to the elevations, site elevations, for active and solar development, that's what these are proposing, is active, passive and active solar. The solar panels go on that lower portion of the homes, right? So that's the south facing side. And what those clear story windows do is act as passive solar, right? So they receive winter suns and shade out summer suns. So you're getting reduced amount of energy requirement, and then all the energy that is required, we're hoping to do through active solar. Now, what happens if you get a large maturing canopy tree on these homes that are adjacent to the road? It'll actually shade out those solar panels and reduce their impact. What we're proposing is to follow the utility alternative option in the code by providing the understory trees so that we get the habitat, we get the canopy, and we also get the solar. We're hoping for a win-win here, thinking holistically. And we're actually, because we knew this was going to be a request, we squeezed in as many as we could, right? So the 24 mature canopy trees would have been required, 36 understory per the alternative option. I'm sorry, 32. And then, sorry, Sam, to just correct that 36 number, on the plan, it's actually 37 trees that we're proposing. So 5 above the alternative option. And the reason we're proposing this is because we really want to maintain, as Equinox and our mission, we really want to maintain the health of those trees. And talking with our ecologists on staff, we really believe that this is, if not a minimum equivalent to the other option, better, because we are still providing the habitat, we're still providing the shade, and we're also providing orders of magnitude more carbon sequestration by having the solar. And so I just wanted to make sure that I represented this plan for what we're proposing, because we do believe strongly in what we're doing. And I just wanted to make sure that you guys heard it from the designer.
Thank you, Jason. Are there any questions for Jason? Any further questions for Sam? Any other comments that any commission members would like to make? Yes. Cecil?
I guess my question is, are we being asked for sort of a preliminary view at this point? I mean, we aren't going to vote on this until after it comes back from TRC, right?
No, you're going to vote on it now. This is part of the discussion that they are trying to have prior to go to TRC. So you are not voting on anything else. There are no homes proposed. These are only 18 residential lots. The box shown is not necessarily the final location. What you are voting on is whether or not that there is sufficient reason and alternative compliance to the street tree standard to go to what is considered overhead utilities present again, which is correct. 30 small maturing trees or one small maturing tree every 30 feet.
Right. I would move to approve it. And then in that case.
Okay. There's been a motion to approve. Is there a second? Seeing no second, the motion is rescinded. Is there another motion? Yes.
Yes, I move that we reject this request until we have more information.
I
It
second
seems
that.
inappropriate for us to approve something that hasn't been through TRC.
And excuse me, Mr. Chair, if I can interject, to be clear, is that a rejection, a denial until resubmission, or is that a continuance until more information is provided?
For clarification, I move to deny this request.
Okay, thank you.
I second it.
Okay, before there's discussion on the motion, I believe I'm correct, and Nancy can correct me if I'm not, but if we deny this, we have to point to one of the 6 criteria to support our denial. We can either postpone or continue this alternative compliance request, recommend to the applicant what we would like to see in the alternative compliance request and have it brought back to us for further consideration.
That is correct. Nor are you limited to a singular reason of the 7 provided.
Correct.
In my opinion, the request doesn't meet any of the 7 criteria, Patrick.
I agree.
Okay, then can you make that part of your motion?
You want me to single out each one?
No, you can just say that it doesn't meet any of the 6 criteria.
Okay, my motion is to deny
Oh,
the
sorry,
request.
it's 5 criteria.
Okay.
No, 6. 6. You're right, 6.
Right. I make the motion to deny this request because it doesn't meet any of the 6 criteria.
I second it.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion on the motion? Hearing none, then I will.
And I'm sorry, one last time to interject again. It does appear that Karen has her hand up.
Oh, Karen, sorry.
Discussion.
Is this where we could also ask for more information as far as the solar access mapping and, you know, specifics of what we want to see for it to be approved?
I believe that's the case. Chris, if you could weigh in here, or Nancy, we're treading out of planning and into legal.
Yes, you could
Yeah,
ask for additional information and continue to another meeting.
Okay, well, since we're just discussing this now, I'm also learning the process.
Yeah.
I think it should go through TRC before it comes back to us. Is that just making this overly complicated and just support the motion of denying it, or is it worth having the request for these other steps?
So if you deny it, then their appeal would go to the would go to the planning director, or potentially maybe legal would send it to the Board of Adjustments. I don't know. I don't think it would come back to you unless there was a substantially different request. You could continue it until after and to another meeting. So that the continuance could be until after the TRC meeting. It could be until there's additional information. It could continue to the next meeting for 3 months, for 6 months, whatever it is.
I guess I just want to say there are a lot of things that I really like about this project, but what I don't like is the lack of regulatory teeth. So as far as having this project be upheld in perpetuity. So that being said, and having mentioned what I'd like to see, it doesn't have to be part of this motion. I will go ahead and support the motion to deny the alternative compliance whenever it's my turn.
Can we request a continuance?
Yes. I think so.
Instead of going through a motion of denial? I mean, it sounds like, there is desire for additional information. The reason we sought this earlier is because, instead of going through all of the hurdles of the full development, we wanted to make sure we could do a sustainable development here instead of blowing out the site and taking out a lot of trees. We were hoping to do something that was replacing it with, all the trees that existed on site, and to have net zero loss of canopy instead of the 15% that's required by the code.
Sharon?
Are we still in discussion mode?
Yes.
So my issue is our percentage of loss of canopy. And my issue is also seeing how these are individual units that may or may not put solar on these homes or townhomes, whatever they're called. And that is my issue because that's subjective. We can't make people do something, you know. And my concern is what's our overall loss from small trees to large canopy trees to how many are coming out to accommodate the requirements for the solar. I agree. In conception, it sounds great, but in the long run, I can see issues going down the line about what our end results will be for total tree canopy lost.
So according to the calculations provided in the code, the total canopy will actually be this exact same, if not more, due to the 50% increase in trees that we're proposing. And to go to the solar question, our client, Donald Nicholson, is got an answer to that.
To respond to you on the 50%, you don't know that because you haven't gone through TRC yet. And you don't know that because you haven't done your 719 tree save and the loss of small trees to large trees. So that's, for me, not seeing it in black and white on a plan to count it. It's not that I don't believe you, Jason, because I've run into you before and you do a great job. It's just that we don't know. There's too many things for me out there.
And that's fair. I 100% agree. So then we would like to request a continuance then so that we could come back after TRC and show you, you know, the best that we can do, you know, show you who we are and that this plan is offering as much canopy as that the site can sustain.
So for clarification, and I'll reiterate what Nancy said, if we vote to deny this alternative compliance request, it takes it completely out of our hands. If we vote to continue and request additional information, it will have to come back to us. And then we can have a more proper evaluation on the request. So I guess I will ask the maker of the motion and the seconder if they wish to proceed with a vote on the motion, which is to deny this alternative compliance request because it does not meet any of the 6 criteria for alternative compliance.
It's my motion, and I kind of feel like I don't know. I'm not sure if we want to continue this, or I mean, if it completely closes the door for future requests, you know, I don't think that's fair. But currently, we have no basis to approve this. It doesn't meet any of the criteria. There's a lot of information we don't have. And there's a lot of generalizations made on sustainability just based on the presence or absence of large maturing trees. We don't know what solar access mapping is. We don't know if the placement of trees can reduce energy consumption because of shade appropriately placed in concert with solar. We don't know what species are being provided and what type of habitat these species provide for pollinators. I mean, we're throwing the word sustainability out, and it's really, in terms of this discussion, it's just a buzzword. So, you know, without information, we can't make a decision. If we want to continue this till we get the appropriate level of information, I guess we can do that, and I'll withdraw my motion just out of fairness to the applicant. But we have to meet these criteria for making a decision, and we have to be true to ourselves. And we're throwing the word sustainability around that. We're considering everything in terms of what the trees provide us, including management of stormwater, including habitat, and you know, being pollinator-friendly species, and allowing trees to sequester carbon, and allowing trees to provide shade in ambient cooling to reduce carbon consumption. So, you know, let's be careful with our terminology. Offline, I'd like to hear how solar energy sequesters carbon. That comment was made. It reduces the use of carbon. It doesn't sequester it. So I mean, we're just not even close to approving this. So I think I see heads nodding. I'll withdraw my motion in favor of tabling this for future discussion with more information.
Does the seconder agree with the to withdraw the motion that's on the table?
Yes. With reservations, I agree with Ed all the way around. I do with reservations. I would say personally, I don't know whether it's part of our rules or not, that they should just pull this whole thing and come back and resubmit later, if that's such a thing, to come back to us with more information. Now, does that mean that I withdraw my second yes?
So a procedural question to Nancy. If we vote to continue this alternative compliance request, does the applicant have to come back with a new alternative compliance request?
Not necessarily. And you can also, to Sharon's ponderances out loud, you can also, as a part of your motion, condition what information you need when they come back. So there is a way in which you can say, we need photometrics, we need solar studies, we need more information that this guarantees that there will be active and passive solar on this site, and that the overhead utilities present is the best alternative to maximize that. So that is something you may do. You can also add any other conditions you please as part of the continuance or the denial. That is also something I believe you can do in the state of North Carolina.
Thank you, Sam. Ed, do you want to make a motion to continue this alternative compliance request and list the specific recommendations that we would like to see when the request comes back to the commission?
No, I would not. I would prefer allowing the applicant to withdraw their request at this time. It's the responsibility of the applicant to provide us the information to make the decision. It's not our responsibility to ask them which information we need. So my recommendation is that the applicant withdraw this request for some later date when we have when they can provide us adequate information.
So procedurally, can the commission require the applicant to withdraw the request? Sam, Nancy?
Yeah, Chris, I think may have some way, and I've never seen it to where the board asks for a withdrawal. That is not something I've seen in my working in local governance. Should the applicants speak up, they can do that.
The applicant, Sam,
Yeah,
I can.
Wait a minute, hold it. Let's have a little bit of order here. Chris?
Yeah, so the applicant is free to do that. The board can't direct the applicant, the commission can't direct the applicant to do that. But I think really the Urban Forestry Commission's options here would be to approve, deny, or continue the request. If the applicant wanted to request continuance and the commission wanted to honor that, that's fine as well. And any kind of request of continuance or withdrawal applicant would need to be completely at the discretion of the applicant.
So then I would ask the applicant if Equinox would be willing to withdraw the alternative compliance request at this present time and resubmit after the development goes through the TRC process.
Yes, thank you, Patrick. I just wanted to ask if it was appropriate at all to have our client speak. I know their hand has been up for quite some time. If that boat has sailed, or if that was appropriate at this time.
Sure. Well, No, we have a motion. Well, the motion was withdrawn. So yes, if the applicant wants to speak.
I feel like some of what I was going to say is a little bit moot. I'm happy to either get a continuance or withdraw at this point in time and come back after the other development meeting and with some more specific information, along with some legal teeth about restrictive covenants of net zero homes in perpetuity that are put in the deeds themselves of the lots. This is our third phase of net zero homes that we've done on Emma Road. So we've faced this problem on a personal level already and sort of have a game plan from a legal perspective, how to create long-term teeth that force future owners to have to continue our goal towards a net zero future.
Okay, just to make it official then, Jason, you've heard the sentiment of the commission members. Are you willing to withdraw the current alternative compliance request and submit another one at a later date?
Yes, we'd like to withdraw our request. We will submit after we submit for TRC. You know, this is my first time going through this commission. I thought that, you know, we would try to be efficient with our time and try to see if it was a possibility to get this approval before continuing with further design of the development. But I see at this time that the commission would like to see full TRC submittal prior to. So we will go ahead and withdraw if that's okay with everybody and resubmit after TRC submittal.
Thank you, Jason. Cecil?
Yeah, I would just like to applaud what Nicholson's trying to do. I live in a net zero home and I have 5 homes within line of sight from my house that are net zero homes. This is what's happening and this is what has to happen. And I get the concerns about the big tree, you know, wanting the higher canopy, but there have to be trade-offs. And, you know, if we don't get to net zero internationally, we're all dead. So anyway, that's all. That's just a comment.
Thank you, Cecil. Well, I want to thank Sam, Jason, and the commission members and the rest of city staff. This was sort of a new threshold for us to deal with. And I think there were a lot of really good points made during the discussion, and look forward to having the request resubmitted at a later date. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And Jason, I'm going to send you an email. We can meet later to discuss.
Thank you. So we'll move on to the next agenda item, which is general public comment. Hunter, do we have anyone in the queue?
We do not.
We do not. Okay. Then we'll move forward to staff reports. City Arborist, Mark.
Hi there. I think I submitted what we're up to lately to Hunter. Is that correct?
Yes.
Are there any questions about any of it? No? Okay. No questions you anticipate for me going forward on the agenda?
Yes. Sharon?
I have a question. What's CPTED?
CPTED, crime prevention through environmental design.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
In terms of trees and street lights, it means allowing the street lights to actually reach the road and the sidewalk and so forth, and other little dark hidey hole places that people lurk in sometimes.
Yeah, thank you.
Right, you bet.
If you hold on one second, I have a question for either Mark or Chris Collins, if you bear with me for just a second. I don't have the information. Well, we'll just move on, and I'll follow up with either Mark or Chris or both of you after the meeting. Urban Forester update, Heath?
Yeah, thank you. I think a lot of you know that I've been kind of going back between FMLA and that sort of thing, taking care of some family issues. But as far as, where I've been going and what I've been doing, and learning a lot about tree removal applications, replanting, both in steep slopes and else around town. I've gotten that down pretty good right now. I think I'm pretty good up on the ordinance right now. So I guess I'm probably 3 months in right now. So I feel pretty confident that, I can answer people's questions and that sort of thing. So I've been taking a lot of calls, just, general questions about trees and, what can I do? What can I not do? My neighbor next door is doing this and that sort of thing. So, been shuffling a few of those calls around. Also have been working with some of the community representatives for the community grant program that's coming up here soon. So reviewing some of those requests and plans. Let's see what else we got. Had an interesting meeting with Duke Power about a week and a half ago. I met their new engineering tech for downtown. And that was mainly to kind of get myself up to speed on, kind of what their position is on trees and, where we can possibly partner on, future initiatives and that sort of thing. I guess the biggest thing that came out of that meeting was that they are, as Duke Power moves forward and they start putting in more of the EV chargers, there will be more tree cutting due to that because of the higher voltage on the lines that they'll be putting in. So that was, something that, certainly want to address with them in the future and talk more about that. And, but we really set a standard just to just have dialogue between our organizations and so that we can, start seeing what they want. I asked them bluntly, I was like, well, what would you all prefer? And, they said, we would prefer no trees under power lines and no bamboo, and then kind of went into, what they can do for us. I did inquire about their volunteer program. So I know they have a volunteer program where they can plant trees with some of their staff. So I was very interested in that. And then also looking at alternative sites for like nursery trees. And so I did ask them about, under the transmission lines that are down along the river, if we can't, encroach in some of that right away, to bring some street trees, like a little nursery down there as well, since we're not really using, they're not usually using that site down there. So those guys, the engineering techs, are going to put me in touch with some of the other folks who I need to ask those questions with. Let's see, had another good conversation with Matt Browning from Clemson University. They were trying to, they needed a partner for their IRA grant that we had to do to deny, but we also looked at doing some partnering in the future. They have a program with parks going right now where they will be identifying tree planting areas or places to increase their the forest canopy. And I did tell him that we would, really love to, look at that data as well as be a part of any kind of new programs that they have coming up forward. So that's kind of on the horizon. Had reached out to Haywood Tech, Warren Wilson, made a contact the extension. Also looking into some, like I said, new nursery sites, different programs for that. And then that is really about it. Some of the dates I have upcoming, June 8th, I have a accelerator, the key concepts and best practices and equity-centered community engagement. That's put on by the Center for Regenerative Solutions. That's coming up. I have social media strategies. I reached out to Cape to see, if I could start a social media page just on Instagram, that sort of thing. And then also June 16th, I have Southeast Trees and Law Symposium put on by the North Carolina Urban Forest Council. And that's really about it so far. As anything else that's kind of coming my way. Any questions?
Thank you, Keith.
Yeah,
You sound like a real slacker.
I'm sorry. I'm just trying to nail it down into a few things that I can really concentrate on. But there's a lot going on. Besides different conversations and that sort of thing. But yeah, I'm slacking off here for sure.
Thanks for all that.
Yeah.
Anybody else have any questions or comments for Keith? Okay, we'll move on. TPO report. Nancy, do you have anything additional to the chart that's included in the agenda? No?
Nope.
Okay. Any questions for Nancy? All right, we'll move on to old business, working group updates, budget request working group. Karen is, I'm
We
sorry.
haven't met in this month. I think the latest thing was the letter to the council requesting their help with the plan and so forth. Yeah.
Okay, any questions for Cecil? Okay. The policy working group, tree protection exemption discussion, the landscape code. Sharon, do you want to?
I'd like to give a quick overview, and I'd like to ask Nancy when I had feedback, I think. I'd like to ask Nancy when this is going to council. Is it got a date for council yet?
I don't know.
I thought I did, and then I thought I didn't. But I do know that I requested time to discuss this, and it's not today because alternative compliance was large. And so I just want to go over that we did form a working group with Karen and Chardon and myself, which we have not met yet because this was done at the last meeting. But I did do a review of the new to the old. And I've got a quick synopsis, and I'm not going to go to in depth because it's an ordinance and it can be real ordinance-y, if you know what I mean. The good part of this is the soil volume is increased on trees, more space for trees in a vehicle use area. It means less trees, but it means that we'll have trees that will be able to do their job of what they're supposed to do, which is create a canopy. So this is a good thing. I want to commend Ed was on this committee. I was on for a little while, and he stuck through it through thick and thin. So he's to be commended for this. We've got permissible encroachments. Chris, you should get me before I get going because
Yeah, Sharon, I was just going to give you
Stop.
on the landscaping draft code. It does not have a council date yet. There's discussions going forth and back about a green roofs provision that's in there and trying to right size that right now. Working Padilla and I and a few people have been talking with the architecture community on that one. So not at the finish line yet.
Okay, good, because I think USC will probably have comments on some of this when we get together in the working group to present it to the full UFC. And then I'm sure that we're going to have some comments on it that we'll want staff to take a look at. So thank you for that. We've got permissible encroachments that need to be approved by the urban forester, which is new. We've got planting distances from tree to buildings, which is great. So we'll see no more of those alternative compliance where you've got a tree planted 1.5 feet away from the building just because it needs to be a tree. And we've got green infrastructure islands, which are used for stormwater catchment. And the best part of it is we've got inspection criteria and NZ tree pruning standards that are written in black and white that people have to follow. The inspection criteria is large and it's complete, and it's what's been needed for a long time. So I'm in agreement with most of our new changes that are going on. But typical for me, I've got some things that I'm not in agreement with. We have an exemption in vehicle use areas that are elevated at least 3 feet from the edge of pavement, or separately a berm that is at least 3 feet high shall not be required to comply with the street buffer requirement. So I'll use as an example the shopping center I manage on 4 South Tunnel Road. I have got about a 5-6 foot berm there that's got trees planted on it that were part of this particular street buffer. There was no room for street trees because of the problem on Tunnel Road with utilities. So with this exemption, that means that places that like Kmart, the old Kmart that sits lower on Patton, and like the shopping center I'm referring to, won't require a buffer. Now, this street buffer is the landscaping along street rights away between parking areas and pedestrian zones. And this can mean anything. This can mean trees and shrubs. It depends on the zoning and what's required. So there's a little ambiguity on that. But that is a new addition that I don't quite understand, that I think once we get some information, we'll know exactly what they're talking about. But in the instances that I see, this will reduce our tree canopy. If we've got the instance like my shopping center where you can't put in street trees due to utilities, but this buffer area, they put trees on. Let's see. And I've got a question of also what constitutes a street buffer as far as plant count. That's not really identified, where there's a lot of identified in 711.3 of how many trees, how many shrubs, but in this instance, it is not. What was left out also is landscaping required when development exceeds maximum parking standards. Placement, so if they go over X amount of parking right now, over I think it's 1,000 feet, you have to add more VUA parking to that. Right now there is not added to that. So that means that they can add when necessary more parking, but not necessarily more VUA planting. And so that needs to be clarified. Now, I want to let you know, this is my going through it. When the working group goes through this, I'll have other minds looking this other than mine, and they may have different opinions and may say, Sharon, you're full of it, and this is what it really says. So I'm just making this, having waded through ordinances, that I can read something and think it says something and it does not. Okay, and they also left out placement of protective barriers and what they should consist of around trees. Now, in 719, we have protective barriers, but on 711.3, for some reason, I think that was just left out. I don't think that was a purpose thing. We have no protective barriers or trees in the new code. And then my biggest concern is we have building impact trees are being removed. Now, I think there's a compromise left in building impact trees to be removed. It's left out of the 711.3 entirely. So I'm thinking for a change about compromise, which I don't do well, but I happen to think that this may be a need. Now, and I'm using an example on one of my TRC projects I looked at, where if we didn't have any building impact trees, they would have been shy 72 trees and 100 and some shrubs additionally. Now, this, if they're, and they are also the example I'm using, they also have 719 trees they're saving, and also they're 40% canopied, and they're saving 15% they're required. But right now, the code says that it's over, building impact trees are currently as shall be required for new or existing buildings in order to soften views from roads and adjacent properties, provide shade to reduce the heat generated by impervious surfaces, reduce glare, and to help enhance the urban landscape. Building impact determination, all new developments with an existing or proposed building with a footprint greater than 3,000 square feet. Developments with more than one building shall combine the total footprint areas. And calculating the requirement, 1 tree and 2 shrubs for every 1,000 square feet of building footprint. Trees and shrubs may be planted anywhere on site. So, which is a good thing. Now, we have some areas that are more treed than others, that maybe the building impact tree may be overkill. But then we've got these developments that'll come in and they'll have fee in lieu, they'll have no existing trees, and the only thing that they're going to be putting up is street trees, and they're a large development, and that means that they're not required to put any building impact trees in, where because of the size of the development previously, on some of these developments, that's the only thing that they'll put in is the building impact trees and the street trees. So there are instances where this is going to impact our canopy. And in some cases, they may be heavily treed, and this may be overkill. And in other cases, we may need to put building impact trees on to offer some glare requirement. My shopping center that I manage on 4 South Tunnel Road, if we didn't have any building impact trees, I'd be minus 11 oak trees that start from the Whole Foods to go all the way down to the Fifth Seasons. Those are building impact trees. And so then the only requirement would be the VUA trees. And the VUA trees were decreasing, but we're hopefully getting better canopy. And then I have no street trees because of the utilities. So the only thing that this would apply to at the shopping center I manage is that they would only be required to do VUA trees if we didn't have building impact trees. So in this instance, that's a lot of reduction in canopy, but not always. So I think there's some room for discussion and work around with this. How we get there, because I know that there has been a year's worth of discussion on this already, but I think there's some way for compromise on this. And there's a lot of little other things that have changed. None of them really that important, just language changes and to just ask further questions to Vidilla or staff members. So that's my quick review of it.
Thank you, Sharon, for your detailed report. Does anyone else wish to comment or ask Sharon questions? Ed?
Yeah, I encourage Sharon to send those comments to Vidilla so the committee that's working on this has an opportunity to consider them and discuss it. I don't want to get into a discussion of building impact trees now, but I know the committee went through some pretty detailed analysis. And, what we really wanted to avoid was over requiring trees, especially since we're moving towards a happy place with respect to soil volume requirements, that we we need to make sure that there's adequate space to grow trees. So
Mhm.
if Sharon, if you could forward all those comments to Badilla, the committee, for committee discussion, I think that would be really helpful.
Yeah, what I want to do is I want to go over with 2 other people that are looking at this as well as I, so that we all agree with this in the working group, so that I'm not just sending my interpretation of what I see. And if it's not going, that's why I asked, when is this going to council? So that I'm not sending over information that's purely up from my brain alone. That makes sense. And yes, I agree with you, Ed. The more room for growing, the better. We've got reductions in buffer trees, by which I am think is good, and by 1 and several shrubs. In some places, they're eliminating shrubs altogether, which I don't understand why eliminate a shrub in a buffer area, but that, again, I'd like to go over with my working group. And if you'd like to see the notes and send them to you before we send them on, that'd be really helpful. If you could just look at them. You're muted.
I will take a glance at them.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other discussion or questions? Yes, Karen.
Hi, this just seems like a good place to mention that when we're looking at the chapter 20 comparison, that I was told that the soil volume improvements would be in 711.3, and I would like clarification. I want to be really sure that that happens, because I don't see how it makes sense to remove the evaluation of soil to a depth of 3 feet from chapter 20 if we're not really sure that we're going to have something equal or better somewhere else. So I just want that to be very public.
Ed?
Yeah, thanks for raising that point, Karen. I think, when there's a lot of cross-referencing with various code elements, that it's best to, rather than having ordinances be educational and provide technical standards, it's best to always reference back to standards that shall be conformed with. So to address your concern, in chapter 20, we absolutely should say soil volume standards shall be met as per specified in the landscape standard manual, and then have those standards in the manual. And the big thrust behind revising the standards and specifications manual started with our insistence on improving soil volume standards, because we've seen over and over again that a lot of trees are planted with substandard soil volume and the trees die. So we are moving in that direction, and I'm really happy with how the standards coming along with respect to that. So thanks for raising that point.
Well, and I totally believe you, and I believe in all the work that's happening. I would love to see more of the details. So I'll just try to, get more involved in that.
Okay, sounds good. We'll share it with you.
Sharon?
Yeah, the details are in the new 711.3. They have drawings and standards, and they're showing it will not be a specific of 3 cubic feet, etc., because it also, again, depends on what you're planting. But it's has detailed drawings in the new 711.3 to show how to plant, and they're carried over into the standards and specification design manual. So it is there. Now, how is it referenced in chapter 20? I have no idea. But to set a standard saying 3 cubic feet or 2 cubic feet or 1 cubic foot does not fall within the criteria of planting, because you don't know what you're planting on a tree, and it depends. But there is a criteria showing how to plant depending on the size of the root ball. And if you're still on the working group for 711.3, I can show that to you.
I've seen the pictures. I just wanted, some more clarification and confirmation before we remove something that seemed like a good idea to have in place. So I'll be following it. Thank you.
All right, is there any further questions or comments on the landscaping standards? Seeing none, we'll move on. Chapter 20. We have prepared a document. It's a 3-column document. First column is the changes that the city staff has proposed in Chapter 20. Second column is what the policy working group is proposing for as changes in Chapter 20. And the third column details the differences between those two positions. I would like for the policy working group to meet within the next 2 weeks to go over that document one more time before I submit it to city staff, Mark Foster, so that we can schedule a meeting and finally get go through Chapter 20 and get an agreement, and then move that on to legal for the ordinance language, and then get that to the city council. Are there any questions or comments on Chapter 20? Seeing none, we'll move on to 719. The policy working group got the staff recommended amendments to 719. I passed them on to the policy working group members, and we need to meet on that as well, to go over that and then meet with city staff and get an agreement on those amendment language and get that along with Chapter 20 before the city council. So the policy working group will be quite busy in the next several weeks. Are there any questions, comments? Okay, then we'll move on to missing middle housing. The Missing Middle Housing Advisory Committee, I'm on that committee as a representative of CAN. Zoe is on the committee as a representative from the Urban Forestry Commission. We have not met again, our second meeting, and we've received no research or data from the consultant as yet. As I want to remind you, the consultant is looking for two major areas. One is the barriers to creating or building missing middle housing. The second is looking for opportunities to build missing middle housing. On the first, the barriers, they'll be looking primarily at the UDO and requirements there. And I reiterate, we have got nothing from the consultant, but anticipating that there's a high probability that 719 will be identified as a barrier to building missing middle housing. I felt that we, as an advisory committee, would need more information in order to come up with an informed decision should that be identified as a barrier. So I contacted Chris Collins and asked him about the feasibility of staff conducting a GIS study on all available vacant properties in residential zoned areas in the city of Asheville, taking that information and do a tree canopy mapping so we could see firsthand the extent of exempting, either in part or in full, the tree canopy preservation ordinance from any missing middle housing program. And I'll let Chris chime in and if he has any additional comments.
I don't really have much to add yet, Patrick. The GIS work is ongoing. We've made some progress and hope to have results soon. Patrick and I talked about this. We anticipated this needing and being an analysis that would likely be needed at some point through the missing middle housing study. So really it's just getting ahead of that step a little bit. But hopefully that will be results I'll be able to get back to you, Patrick, and then you can introduce it probably through one of your committees at that point.
Okay, thank you, Chris. Are there any questions for Chris or to me or Zoe? Yes, Karen?
No, I'm sorry. That is Karen up
Keith.
first. Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
sorry. Go
So
ahead, Keith.
a lot of that GIS data that you talk about wanting, that's kind of what Clemson is working on, and I think they've already identified a lot of that stuff through the park system, and they were also working on areas within marginal neighborhoods as well. So their whole goal is to increase the canopy and then also use that as a social marker as well to how trees affect the I guess the psychology of people. So they do have some of that data, and that's kind of what they're hoping to partner with us in the future is to take that kind of data. So just to kind of let you know if as time goes on and we figure out a better way to or maybe engage Clemson, that we might be able to get some of that data out of them as well. So I know they're going into like a beta version where they're going to test out with some of the communities that they've been working with, so like down at Southside, that sort of thing. So it would be interesting to follow up with them and see what kind of data we can get out of them.
Thank you, Keith. Anybody else have any questions or comments? Thank you. Moving on, legislative update, just very quickly. I mentioned before that there's a bill in the State General Assembly, Senate Bill 317, that would create workforce housing development projects of 10 acres or more and residential communities. And one of the provisions of that bill, as it currently is written, would exempt ordinances like 719 from being applied to those development projects. Currently, that bill is stuck in committee, which I assume means that they are either going over trying to develop amendments to Senate Bill 317, or they simply don't have the votes yet to move it out of committee and to the floor for a vote. So it's something to keep an eye on. Obviously, we don't want to have any more exemptions or any exemptions, if possible, to Section 719 because of all the hard work that's been put into by both the commission and also by city staff in developing that ordinance. And in fact, if anything, we want to increase the kind of protection and preservation of trees that the ordinance now provides. So, yes. Sharon?
Is there a Senate bill number on that?
317.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Anyone else? Okay, thank you. We'll move on to update from Chris Coyle. Is Chris here?
No, sorry. I totally forgot to invite him.
Oh, okay.
I will make sure that he is at our next meeting.
Okay. Well, then we'll move on. New business. So as I mentioned, Don Chavez has stepped off the Urban Forestry Commission by virtue of resigning as executive director from Asheville Greenworks. Don was the vice chair of the Urban Forestry Commission. So we need to vote to nominate and vote someone to take her place as vice chair. Ed? Ed?
Yeah, I would like to nominate Zoe Hoyle
That's
to
what I
be
was
vice
gonna do.
chair of the Urban Forestry Commission.
Okay, Ed has nominated Zoe Hoyle to be the vice chair of the Urban Forestry Commission. Are there any other nominations?
I was going to nominate Zoe as well. So I second that.
Okay, any other nominations? All right, so there's a motion on the floor to appoint Zoe Hoyle as vice chair of the Urban Forestry Commission. And the motion has been seconded. Is there any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, then I will call the question. Ed?
Aye.
Sharon?
Aye.
Karen?
Aye.
Cecil?
Aye.
And I'm not going to call on Zoe. Zoe. So I vote aye. So the appointment of Zoe Hoyle as vice chair of the Urban Forestry Commission has been approved. Thank you so much, Zoe, for agreeing to take this position. I look forward to working closely with you.
Thank you all, I think.
That's the best
Okay.
speech I've heard in a long time.
Yeah. So working groups, is there anybody who wishes to step off or step on or change working group membership? Yes.
I suspect we need another member for the budget group. If someone wants to join us on the budget group.
Anybody want to step up? Well, think about it, and if you would like to join the budget working group, email Cecil. Thank you. Finally, yes.
We have hands up.
Oh, let's say Zoe.
I suspect that we need people to join the Urban Forest Master Plan Fee in lieu group. And I'm not sure where we are in moving forward with one of those.
I volunteer to work on that group.
Yay!
Thank you, Ed. Okay, anybody else? Sharon?
I wanted to ask Karen, are you on the subcommittee to go over 711.3? I know Chardin said he would. I didn't know if you'd committed to doing that or not. I think I may have volunteered you without you even asking to do it.
Yes, I did. I remember even saying, this is going to be fun. Yeah.
Okay, good. So that makes you and I and Chardon, who's on vacation, because he sent me an email saying he would. So I just want to clarify that, Patrick, as our working group.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Thanks.
Thank you. So lastly, on new business, yes. Karen?
So for appropriate species list group, we are trying to push this forward. And Keith, if you're here, can you just comment on if you'd like to, like your level of involvement in this group, if you'd like to come to the meetings, if you want to just be included in emails, or what your thoughts are on that?
Yeah, yes, I would love to be involved in all that, actually. I do have a list that I've been kind of, penning myself. So I have yet to, kind of compare it up to what you have sent me already. So, but that is in the works.
Yes, go ahead.
Excellent.
I'm
Sharon?
on that group. Karen, are you going to call meetings whether we're in person or a Zoom? Is that what you'll set up and let us know what's going on with that?
Yeah, we can, I guess, decide by email or now. Sharon's out of town, but we'll see what works best for everyone, Zoom or in person.
Okay, thanks for organizing that.
Anything else on working groups? Thank you. So the last item on new business, each board and commission chair has been requested to give an update to the specific city council committee that they report to. And so I will be giving an update on the activities of the Urban Forestry Commission to the Environment and Safety Committee. I think it's July 25th. I will primarily use the report that Amy Smith developed for the full council and sent to them in January, and then update it with anything that has occurred between January and July. And I will circulate that to the commission members to make sure that I haven't left anything out of importance. So just a heads up on that. Any questions or comments on that? Okay, well, we finally come to the end of the agenda. Unless anybody has a serious objection to which there will be submitted to a firing squad, then we can go ahead and officially end the meeting. Yes.
Move to adjourn.
Motion has been made to.
There's no voting.
Yeah, I know.
No voting. That's
I know.
right.
I
Adios.
second.
No voting necessary.
I second, but I really want to applaud Patrick for stepping up. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you, Patrick.
Thank you.
Thank all of you. I mean, you know, nobody can do this job without the great cooperation, collaboration, and expertise of all the